The following contest is for the World Podcast Championships. Introducing first, Rob E. Mazing. Accompanied by the Big Red Clifford L. Johnson. And the magnificent Lego My Edro. At a combined weight of 775 pounds, they are the Nerd Wrestling Alliance!
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Well, I guess you could be listening to this in the morning, so that really doesn't matter. Anytime at all. I am Rob English, and I am sitting here with Ed Rowland, and we are missing our third co-host, Clifford L. Johnson. We are the Wrestling Nerds Alliance. Basically, this is just going to be another wrestling podcast.
Because we need another one.
Absolutely, you need a bunch of them. Basically, we are three fans. We have known each other for many, many, many years. And we just kind of were sitting around one day watching a pay-per-view and said, you know what? Maybe we should try to make this into a podcast.
We're entertaining motherfuckers, man.
If only ourselves, that's okay. Basically, what we wanted to do is have a weekly discussion. A weekly discussion of the wrestling news of the week, give our opinions, our thoughts, maybe put it out there. If others like it, fantastic. If not, that's okay too. Basically, are we experts?
No, I wouldn't say. Well, you're more an expert than I am, for sure.
I wouldn't say we're experts. I would say we are devoted fans, many years of watching, and, you know, obviously, what's that old saying? 10,000 hours of practice can make you an expert.
We're masters now.
Yeah. I've probably watched well over that amount of wrestling in my lifetime. However, again, I will never say I'm an expert. Am I a very devoted fan? I will say I'm a very devoted fan.
Have you ever been paid by the WWE?
I have not been paid by the WWE.
Ring of Honor? Never. New Japan? Any of those guys?
No.
Okay. So we're not pros.
No,
I think that's
not
the
pros.
level.
Not pros. Basically, you know, just watched a lot, have seen a lot. I'm pretty easily able to predict most of the things that are out there, and I do follow a lot of the wrestling news journalists that you can kind of piece things together. It's like a nice little puzzle.
Dirt sheets? Is that what they're commonly called?
I believe they're called that. But yeah, we just figured that it'd be kind of fun to throw it out there, a perspective from a devoted fan, which is myself, a major fan, which is our missing in action third co-host, and our fan on the fringe is what I like to refer to him as.
I can't watch every week, that's for sure.
Basically, you know, just kind of put it out there, and like I said, if people enjoy it, fantastic. If not, that's okay too.
That's right.
You know,
I enjoy listening to the sound of my voice, so it'll get at least one listen every week.
There you go. There you go. You like to listen to yourself and fall asleep to the dulcet tones of
the smooth sounds of my voice.
the velvet pipes. So yeah, basically that's what it's gonna be, and you know, we're gonna put it out there, and maybe this episode is not gonna be like your traditional one.
Yeah,
you know?
no, we're introducing ourselves, so we won't be talking so much about the news this week as each other,
right,
or ourselves, as the case may be.
There you go. But yeah, so I guess maybe we'll throw it out there. Ed,
Yo.
Why are you the fan on the fringe?
Well, when I was a young boy, my least favorite uncle was the biggest wrestling fan in the family. So it was kind of like siding with my dad as like, ooh, wrestling's not cool. He used to say a lot that he didn't see the enjoyment of watching two grown men sweat all over each other.
It is kind of odd when you explain it to somebody that, you know, oh, I like professional wrestling. Oh, yeah? Wait a minute, isn't that where the guys, they roll around in their underwear? Yeah, they do. But it looks like a real fight.
Right.
And that's why I'm going to go in the other room now.
Right. You try to explain it to people that don't get it, and you get the look. They're like, you're a grown man, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, growing up, it wasn't cool until I met you, and you're like, "Oh, this is sweet, dude." I mean, you showed me the New Japan stuff and the ultra violent, like what was the ICP one that Stranglemania?
Stranglemania,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, dude.
That was the big thing in the early '90s. That was all the. Obviously, we live in Michigan, and ICP is massive around here. Well, they were.
Yeah.
They still have a very, very devoted following
Rabid.
that I am quite honestly terrified of. They do frighten me, but yeah, there was that.
Yeah. Never been one of them is part of the problem. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People I didn't liked ICP, and then you liked ICP, so I'm like,
I
I
did.
guess they're okay.
I
but
did.
I mean, I can't bring it in my house. My wife still violently, will blow up. She hears any clown music.
If you come home repping the Juggalo, she's gonna throw you out.
None of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you showed me all the cool stuff, and then we've been going at it for the last 20 years or so, talking about what's good and what's not.
Well, I think it also kind of timed perfectly with the Attitude Era. Is
Right.
when we met.
Right.
And it was the big thing, and it was hot at that time, and I was able to bring a lot of friends into watching it, and a lot of people became fans during that time. But as things happen, people fade out of interest, and
In and out,
I, in many ways, some people will say sadly, never did. But it was more so because I've been watching since I was
a little kid, right? I mean, your dad was into it when you were a kid, so it was a bonding thing?
kind of.
Kind of?
Yeah, I think probably one of my earliest memories of watching wrestling obviously was Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would watch. My dad was a huge, still is, sports fan. He would watch anything.
Yeah.
The local, pay channel sports station in the area was Pass. You remember Pass back in the day?
No, because Dad hated sports.
Okay. Pass. And there was everything on there. And I used to remember him watching horse racing.
Hmm.
Like, not even like jockey horse racing. It was like carriage racing.
Weird.
It was so weird. And he would watch all of that stuff. And wrestling kind of fell into that, I guess you could say. Like, if he didn't have anything to watch, Monday nights on, the USA Network was primetime wrestling, And I remember I really don't remember the first time he showed me anything like Hulk Hogan or anything like that, but I do remember watching it and kind of, as most kids were in the 80s, like, wow, this guy's like a real superhero. I mean, he's huge. He beats the bad guy. And it was awesome. And I just kept watching. And then, I remember one Saturday afternoon, he was watching a baseball game, and I think there was a rain delay.
Okay.
And he started flipping around, and it happened to be right around 6:05 on a Saturday, and he flipped over to TBS, and there was NWA. There was, World Championship Wrestling, and I remember I saw Ric Flair, and I saw him cut a promo. Of course, I didn't know he was cutting a promo at the time.
Right.
He was just talking, and I remember the sunglasses and the suit, and he was just obnoxious. Even as a kid, I was like, this guy's obnoxious.
What a jerk.
But there was something about him that drew you in. And then, not long after that, I saw the Road Warriors come out.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Road Warriors came out, I was hooked. I was like, who are these guys? These big, giant guys that came... Iron Man hit, Black Sabbath. And they came running to the ring. They didn't just walk. They ran in, they slid in, and they beat the hell out of these two guys. And they were like twice the size of these guys. I was like, this is amazing. What is this? They had the face paint. And I remember, like, I was hooked. I didn't move.
Had you seen Mad Max before you saw the Road Warriors? Nope. Okay, yeah. I was just curious.
No, that was the thing. When I watched Mad Max, I was like, oh, they got that from the Walking Animal. And my dad, no, this came out before that. That's, oh, okay, well, still Hawking Animal. But but yeah, like and from then on I was hooked, and I just wanted to know everything about it. I would watch. I was always supposed to go to bed, and then Monday nights when primetime wrestling would come on, because it would come on, I want to say like 8:30, 9 o'clock,
right?
And I was supposed to be in bed as a little kid, but I would try to watch a little bit, and then my dad would make me go to sleep, and then Saturday mornings I started to discover it was on there, and it was like Jake the Snake, Ricky Steamboat, Macho Man. It was all that stuff. And then Saturdays it was Dusty Rhodes. It was the Four Horsemen. It was, the Rock and Roll Express. It was crazy. And I just kind of felt myself get hooked in like you do with things,
What was your first pro wrestling magazine subscription?
I never had a subscription. We didn't have, make no mistake about it, we didn't have money. We were very poor. But my dad, through various means, we'd have Pass, we'd have HBO, we'd have cable.
Yeah.
But we had, as probably most people did, multiple VCRs, so we would rent movies and then we'd dub a copy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he did that when the local video stores would get Coliseum home video. They would have all the different wrestling videos, so he would do that for me. But the first magazine subscription, I didn't have one, but as most people did, PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and it was one page you're looking at Ric Flair standing there, taunting some guy in his robe, and then the next picture is the Crimson Mask, and it'd be something from Memphis with Jerry Lawler beating somebody up. It was probably, whoever it was that week, Freddy Krueger, or, because there was all kinds of crazy stuff in Memphis, obviously. But, it was just it was violent. It was like real life superheroes. Right. And you would watch it and you would get into it and you'd start reading. I wouldn't know who half the guys were, but I'd be like, apparently, Baron von Raschke is very big in, Minnesota right now. Every now and again you'd catch something like AWA on ESPN or something like that back in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was just kind of, I fell in hard, and I kept watching, and I never stopped. Right. And, when you're 7, 8 years old and you get to be at WrestleMania 3.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to get to that.
And you get to see your hero slam Andre the Giant live, and we were main floor.
Oh, now, I thought you were way up.
We were main floor.
Holy crap.
We were main floor. Granted, I was probably, about 80 yards away from the ring, maybe more than that. They looked like little miniature people, but I saw it. Right. You know what I mean? I was there. So it was I still can remember the sound.
How the crowd felt.
Yeah. The smell of the arena with everybody in it. There's a picture somewhere, I could pull it out of a sign that I had made, for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who's my favorite guy, and, stuff like that. When you get to be around something like that, you fall in, and it's one of your most cherished memories, and it's something that if you allow yourself to get into, and that's what I always tell people when they want to argue with me or, make fun of me for what I like. Look, yes, wrestling is fake. So is Game of Thrones.
So is a magician.
Yeah. So is, hey, did you love Star Wars?
Yeah.
Guess what? It didn't happen.
It was predetermined.
Walking Dead is one of my favorite shows. Guess what? It's not real.
Right.
Okay? I know that. I know that when I watch wrestling. Mm-hmm. I'm not dumb.
Right.
But there's something about, no different than watching a real sporting event, the physicality of it, the performance of it, the...
You have to be so good at so many different things. You have to be an athlete. You have to be an actor. You have to be a stuntman. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if you watch it from that point of view, you can find a better appreciation for it. You know, and there's some people that just won't. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I've been with my wife for almost 17 years now, and I've tried numerous times. She just can't get into it, you know, but she understands. She understands why I like it. But when I talk to her about it, the dead eyes happen. But, you know, like something, oh man, and I'll tell her what the latest news was. Oh, I'm so excited about this. Oh, okay, that's good, honey.
That sounds great. You get the pat on the head.
Can you leave the room now?
Right.
Like, you know,
Callie sounded the same way about her TV show about 2 minutes ago.
She was just talking about something that happened on one of her YouTube channels like that, honey. Good for you. But, you know, like, that's what I always try to explain to people is it's a constant... I always point to, because it's the best explanation I can give, soap opera.
Right.
Okay? The majority of the famous soap operas have been constantly ongoing 5 days a week for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yep.
And you can pick one character and follow their growth as a character for all those years, all the things that happened to them. Pro wrestling is no different. In that you can watch one person from the day they start and enter a ring and all the changes that happen to their character, and sometimes they might go to different companies and their character will change, but for the most part you watch this one person. And if you're fortunate enough to watch them, say, in a company like a WWE that is so big, there's television twice a week, 5 hours of, you know, television, if you want to count what's going on their network, 6 or 7 hours of television a week, where you can watch one person start and all the changes that happen to that character, hopefully over time, can last you years. You know, there's that YouTube video that I showed you that I laughed. I was like, this is how I always explain pro wrestling to people. That the son of
Max Landis.
Max Landis, thank you. That he put together where he talked about Triple H and how a 20-some-odd year career, the guy started one way and now he is this way. And if you put it into that perspective and say, yeah, well, look, here you go.
It's like an epic in a sense.
Yeah, you know, it's a constant evolving story, and it's not all great.
No.
There's a lot of suspension of disbelief, but you have to be willing to do that if you want to allow yourself to kind of understand why people get obsessed with it. And why I did.
The problem for me is the disappointment that comes with so much crap. Like, one of the things that really drew me in the Attitude Era was the WCW versus the WWF kind of backstage stuff. The real life stuff is always way more interesting to me than the actual product.
Very much so.
So when WWF won and they bought WCW and botched the
invasion.
Yeah, the invasion. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, nope. Click.
But I mean, there's politics that go with that.
Exactly.
You know, there's egos that go with things like that, and that's where, like you said, the backstage stuff, if you also follow that, is sometimes more interesting than what goes on screen, because then you can see where sometimes things happen to where you kind of scratch your head and go, wow, that didn't make sense. I wonder why that
because that guy screwed up backstage.
That guy did this. And then, oh, wow. Oh, he didn't shake that guy's hand backstage, so they're mad. You know, that kind of stuff.
Lost in wrestler's court.
Yeah, you know, and that is why I think that much more so than more of the forms of entertainment out there, you can allow yourself to get sucked into something like that. And it's fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? I will never act like you need to be a PhD to understand pro wrestling.
It's pure lowest common denominator.
There you go. In many ways it is. But it's mindless entertainment. And sometimes if you allow yourself to get sucked in, you find, wow, this is actually a lot of fun. Right. You know, you can kind of watch for 2 to 3 hours, a week, or if you really want to watch all of it, and kind of allow yourself to escape and kind of get wrapped into watching a live stunt show.
Right.
where there's a soap opera aspect to it. And yeah, there's sometimes a lot of insulting of your intelligence, but again, it's more so like watching any other show. You know that when you watched when you watch Daredevil
Yeah.
on Netflix, great show. I love that show. There's really not a guy out there who has the ability to see when he's blind because of the different ambient sounds around him. He can paint like sonar in front of him, and
Right.
that doesn't happen. You
No.
have to suspend your disbelief to enjoy the show. There's Walking Dead. Well, I laugh as I'm drinking out of a cup that says Zombie Outbreak Response Team. Zombies aren't walking around and, killing anybody. You
For
have
better
to
or
be
worse.
able to suspend your disbelief because it allows you to enjoy a show about what people do when the world is ended, basically. How do you go forward? You have to be able to cut that out and go, all right, I'm going to forget about this. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is one of the best written shows on television. But there's dragons. Okay? There's dragons. But if you forget about that kind of stuff, you can actually watch a show where you are watching, in many ways, like a mafia show. All these rivaling families and the politics and the backstabbing.
The cutthroat shit they gotta
do.
do.
To get power, to
Right.
get to money, to get, I just want to take down that family because they wronged me, that kind of stuff. You have to be able to suspend disbelief and just watch it for what it is. Wrestling's no different.
Nope. If it speaks to you on a personal level, then that's the whole point of storytelling-based entertainment in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to watch it and go, oh, well, what would I do if I was that guy? You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, and I apologize if my dogs are being picked up in the background.
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Kevin Smith's dogs are on his podcast all the time. It doesn't matter. Shut up, Shecky.
Yeah. So, yeah. But the thing is, you have to be able to allow it to speak to you in a certain way. And if you do, then you find that you get a lot of gratification from it. Like you said, to go back when you were talking about, when it speaks to you. Yeah, I mean, think about it from the point of view of, one of probably the best storylines ever in the history of wrestling was the whole dynamic between Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. Who doesn't want to beat the shit out of their boss?
Right.
Sometimes you go to work and you put up with so much shit, and all day you think, man, I'd love for something to fall out of the sky and drop on his head.
I wish I could spray him with a fire hose.
So you got to watch this guy finally just be like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Listen to the crowd. They love me. You're making a lot of money off me. So you're going to deal with me, and I'm going to give you whatever I feel like giving you. Try to stop me.
Yeah.
And it, again, you have to suspend disbelief. This guy owned the company. If he really wanted to get rid of him, he'd just fire him.
Right.
But he didn't. Why? I mean, it's the show. It's what it is. But it was the things that happened with it. Like filling up his Corvette with cement.
Yeah.
Or, driving a beer truck to the ring and spraying everybody with beer. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. But it was so fun to watch because you see yourself. You go, man, I'd love to be that guy.
And then talking about it with your buddies the next day. It's
There
like,
you go.
how cool was Austin when he sprayed everybody with that beer?
There you go. That kind of stuff is really what it's all about.
Right.
It's more a matter of enjoying it. And then it doesn't even have to be like that. We talk about, you mentioned showing you the Japanese wrestling. Japanese wrestling, maybe now it's a little bit more like that, especially with New Japan, but is not really storyline based.
Nope.
They treat it like a sport. Granted, the majority of the fans know it is not real, but they watch it from the aspect of this is fighting spirit. These are two guys that are going to beat each other, and the strongest one will survive, kind of thing.
Right.
but they allow themselves to get sucked in. They see the physical aspect of it. And that's, again, where a lot of people are drawn to pro wrestling, is it's not just the storylines, it's also the physical aspect of it. You know, to watch a man lift another man up over his head. Granted, there's a lot of, you know, help and assistance from the other guy for things like that, but when you see that happen, you're like, wow, it catches your eye, you know? Yeah. You know, with Japanese wrestling, it's very physical. There's a lot of hard hitting. They don't pull their punches. They beat each other senseless sometimes. And, you know, you watch it sometimes for the car crash aspect of it. You just kind of go, whoa, man, they're just dropping each other on their head. How is that guy not dead? That's happened in Japan, in Mexico, in America. It's not, as they say, it's not ballet. They hurt each other. They do. Why do they hurt each other? I don't know why. Maybe it is the crowd. Maybe it is the rush you get. Maybe, you know, just the way it feels as a fan is also how it feels in the ring. And they feed off that.
Adrenaline addiction to some extent, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, maybe it's adrenaline addiction. Maybe it's, I mean, let's not mince words here. There's money to be made in it.
Word.
You know, maybe it's money. You know, maybe it's, maybe getting to play a real-life superhero is different than playing one on TV. When you're actually in a ring, when you're surrounded by all these people watching you do it live, maybe that feels greater than anything you could imagine, and you just want to feel that. You'll put up with the pain. You'll put up with the.
That's the warrior spirit you were talking about before.
You know, you'll deal with the clicking in the jaw for the rest of your life if you got to put on a match in the Tokyo Dome in front of all those people.
6 stars.
You know, yeah, you know. But I mean, you also flip it over to the way wrestling is in Mexico. You want to talk suspension of disbelief? You watch some lucha, yeah. You watch Lucha Libre. You know, the mask, the colorful costumes, the you know, crazy moves. It's not all like that. You know, a lot of Mexican wrestling is also submission based. But you know, when you watch a lucha match and the guy taps someone on the chest and he flies backwards into the ropes and comes running full speed at you, that's not really happening. You know, if you run at me and I do the whole Olay spot and turn and tap you on the shoulder as you're running by, you're not going to pick up more momentum. That's just the way it is. But that's how it is in Mexico. But the same thing, the character is there. The persona is there. You will deal with the pain that comes with, you know, being dropped on your back 80 times a match, you know, because you get that rush. So I don't know. But looking at it from that whole point of view, it all kind of falls into, again, like what we talked about before. If you allow yourself to believe, not truly believe. Believe. Allow yourself to be in the moment.
It's wrestling.
There you go.
Let's put it in that envelope.
It's wrestling. It's fun. It's, you know,
good times for everyone.
But again, it's like you said, you know, you find yourself drawn more to that aspect of it than the storyline, right?
Yeah. I mean, it as a person who has trained in grappling, it's impressive to both grappling and drama, but not actually been a professional wrestler myself. I appreciate that it's hard to make it look like you're hurting someone without actually hurting someone.
Right.
And if you can do that every night, that's an impressive talent. You know what I mean? And the every now and again someone accidentally getting hurt and the spectacle of that. I mean, you probably shouldn't take enjoyment in that, but you know, I mean, you're not going to tell me Stone Cold Steve Austin's face all like painted up that one time with the Bret Hart match that was exciting. You know what I mean? It
was, and that was, I mean, and again, you talk about the behind the scenes aspect of it, the trouble they got into behind the scenes for doing that, because you know they did not want anyone to bleed on their shows at that time, and you know. stuff like that. Oh, that's the makeup. That's blood capsules. No, that's real blood.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is to explain to somebody when they go, well, how do they bleed? Well, let me tell you.
It's a razor blade.
They take a razor blade, they cut their own head when you're not looking. Why? Man, drama. If somebody's bleeding, you naturally go, oh, what happened?
He's really hurt.
He's hurt. It's what it is. Is it self-mutilation for your art? Sure. But it's...
How many people don't? A lot of performers do.
Yeah, in one way or another. But yeah, it's... That's why I watch. That's why I keep, into it. Many times I've had those moments where I'm like, God, why am I watching this? This is so dumb. But then a few minutes later, something happens and I laugh. I go, okay, that's why I watch.
Yeah. It's going to get better. It'll be okay.
Yeah, give it some time. You can sit through,
There's ups and downs.
Some crap to watch this because, it's going to be okay. It's going to come back around to where there's something you like.
But now with the network, you can just sift through the parts that were good in the future. I don't know. I don't need to keep up with it moment to moment to appreciate that aspect of it.
Right.
Most of the Cruiserweight Classic I saw long after it had aired because, but every single one of those matches was freaking amazing.
Yeah, and again, that's to the point of it wasn't about the haha. It wasn't about the storyline aspect of it. It was presented
a fighting tournament.
Yeah, it was presented that way. It made it a little bit more enjoyable because it was not like what was already out there.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, I think that if you look at the fact that you now have WWE that owns their own network, and they're buying up all of this. That's another thing that, not to cut myself off there, but when you talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff, you also look at where this company has grown to this major global corporation. They have their own network. Is it a monopoly?
To some extent.
To some extent, argue that.
They're the only ones on their level, for sure.
There you go. But they buy up all these assets of all these other companies, and yes, they put some companies out of business, but they're buying up all these tape libraries to put on their network and put that out there. Are they kind of the de facto historians of the business now?
At this point.
They are, but in many ways, you also have to look at it as that old saying, the story is told by the winner. They can shape the narrative now to whatever they want it to be.
Bill Watts was an a-hole.
If they want you to believe that, Vince started out working out of a broom closet and, he fought all his life to get to where he was, they can frame it that way. If they want you to believe that Brett truly screwed Brett, those kind of things, they can make you believe that now. They can shape it that way. And that is dangerous. But you also have to look at it as we live in an era now where information is at your fingertips. If you really want to find out about something, you can. If you allow yourself to believe what they put out there, then okay. Then it tells the story for you. But if you know that there's more out there to the story and you want to look into it, it makes it a little bit more enjoyable for you because you can look at all these old shows and look at the history of the business on their network because it is presented very nicely there. But then you can also dig somewhere else and go, okay, well, who was so-and-so?
Right.
Why did he wrestle there? And why didn't I ever see him in the WWF, or anything like that?
Shane Douglas, for instance.
Yeah, there's a good example. The guy had a brief run in WWF as Dean Douglas. the wrestling teacher, because at that time, everybody had to have a job in WWF. There was all part-time work out there.
Sparky plug.
That's right. You were a race car driver. One guy was a plumber. Another guy was a garbage man.
The repo
man. He was the wrestling teacher. But if you look at when he was in NWA, he was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed pretty boy. He was the all-American guy. He was a dynamic dude. He rode to the ring on a skateboard. But then you also look at, after he did that, he went to ECW. And ECW was a more adult product. They didn't like to, quote, insult your intelligence. They presented things more real, more, grounded in reality, so to speak. It was also a very violent company. But
more of a smart mark show, you might say.
Yeah, but Shane Douglas was the franchise.
Right.
He was portrayed as the guy you hated in high school. He was the jock. He was the popular guy. He was the guy who got whatever he wanted because he was good enough to go out there and take it. And he didn't care if you didn't like him because he was that amazing at what he did. Then all of a sudden he left and went to WWF. Why? Money. Mm-hmm. WWF's the big time. If you look at it from the perspective of Major League Baseball, you got all your farm teams. You're not going to make a whole lot of money unless you can make it to the big show. Mm-hmm. Same thing with WWF. So he went there for money, and then he realized that the behind-the-scenes politics of things, he didn't want to play.
Right.
And they didn't want to play with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he found himself out of the company pretty quick, and he went back to ECW, and then he was able to take that frustration and put it on a live mic and say how he felt. And it was
magic.
Oh, it was great, So, yeah, that's something that I do miss because you don't have that nowadays. There is one player in WWF, or WWE now.
Yeah.
You have your other players, but they're nowhere near that level. I don't think anybody will ever be, which is sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's where you have to support the other companies. You have to support your indie promotions. You have to support your Ring of Honor, your Evolve, your Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. You have to, at times it's painful to do so, support an Impact Wrestling. And man,
I haven't watched Impact Wrestling in so long, dude. The Dudley Boys were still on TV over there last time.
The Team 3D. And
the Millionaires Club.
I've tried many times. And I still try because I follow the business. But it's hard. It's really hard sometimes. Because it's hard to watch something and devote time to it when you know that next week it could be different. It could change.
There's no impact.
Right. Wow. You reached in for that one, didn't you? Low-hanging fruit.
Well.
But yeah, it's hard. And that's why, it is... I find it a struggle sometimes to watch Impact. And I try. And obviously I'll try more if we continue to do this and we actually can get people to listen. And again, I say, if you are listening, thank you.
Woo!
Bear with us. We're going to do our best to try to put more into the show and the equipment and things like that. But we're tin cannon strings right now.
It's all good.
Yeah, but we're going to do what we can.
People have started with less.
They have. They have. And if this is something that we hope it is going to be, we enjoy sitting and finding time to chit-chat.
We would have done this anyway.
Right.
At some point.
Yeah.
We're just recording it.
Yeah. So is there anything else you think you'd like to talk about as far as let me point to this though.
All right.
You say that you don't like the whole storyline aspect of things sometimes.
Yeah.
But yet I know one of your most favorite things in the business was the rise of Kane.
Well,
why is that? Why do you have such an affinity for Kane?
Well, he was basically Jason, right? Is a giant dude who didn't sell anything. Mm-hmm. He was behind the mask, didn't say a word, just came out and wrecked dudes. And that, you're a dude that comes out and wreck dudes. You're in my heart for good. You know what I mean?
You wanted to be Kane.
Yeah, really.
Was there anything to the storyline of it that you identified with?
Not really. I don't have any brothers, so no, not that.
You didn't have any brothers, but you did have an uncle that you had a relationship like that with.
Yeah, that's true.
Were you the spurned one? Were you the one that was in the dark?
I was never burned alive. That's
no, you were burned, but you were always the second fiddle.
Yeah, It wasn't the chosen son, that's for sure.
There
but
you go. Was that it?
Maybe. Probably subconsciously you may have hit on something there. I should lay down on the couch.
You want to?
Yeah, let's
We'll get a pillow out.
let's shrink this up, man.
Be good. I can
But
do
no,
it.
the entrance, I love an organ. You know what I mean?
You love an organ.
Organ music.
Yeah.
Will do it for me all day. And then the fire. Yeah.
Fire.
Fire.
Fire draws you in. When you're a young lad, you're ooh, fire.
Not just, firework pyro, but flames.
He was
It
setting
sweet.
people on fire.
Yeah, shooting fireballs and shit. Yeah, it was sweet.
Again, things suspend disbelief. He pointed a finger at somebody and a fireball shot out of it.
I love The Undertaker for the same reason, though, dude. I mean, he could walk the ropes. That's physically impressive.
At 6'10",
Right.
to be able to walk the rope.
I mean, that was cool.
That's another thing that, whenever somebody's like, it's not real. Yeah, I do. There's a wizard. There's a man on their show that, if you want to go through all the powers that he has displayed on the show, he can possess people.
Summon lightning.
He can project his voice. He can, summon lightning.
Controls the lights in the arena.
When he disappeared for all that time and he was coming back to fight Kane at WrestleMania 20, I always laugh about the time when Kane was walking up the ramp and all of a sudden everything went blue and it started raining on him. It was actually raining on him. So yeah, I know it's not real. There's a man that can summon rain. And spirits and druids. He has druids.
The crucifixion.
Yeah. It was a symbol. It was a symbol. It was a symbol. But yeah, so I mean, there's things like that you do.
There's not. It's you can't just say I don't like any of the storyline aspects of it, because there's some stuff you got to make it semi believable at least. And if it's gonna be like magic powers, never try to explain what's going on. Just let it happen.
Yeah.
Because the Bray Wyatt Randy Orton bullshit at WrestleMania 33, dude. You look at it, you go, "Oh, it's a projector in the ring." Who gives a crap about a projector in the ring? What difference does it make?
Yeah. And then he's laying there pretending like, "Oh, there's giant worms all around me.
They're on my skin. They're all over me."
And crickets. Why were there crickets? I know it was supposed to be cockroaches, but those were crickets.
They're creepy crawly, I guess. They're creepy bugs. Creepy.
Again.
There's a limit, I guess.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty good for time, though, if you want to move on to the news.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So, all right. So this is going to be more like what the format's going to be most weeks. We're going to probably have some discussion, but then we're going to talk about the news of the week. So, the big news of the week so far that everybody has kind of been discussing and up in arms about, Jinder Mahal, the new #1 contender for the WWE title. Why would you take, and I'm not saying this as I disagree, because obviously we're going to talk about this.
Right.
Why would you take a guy who is the middle of the card, for the most part has been jobber to the stars, why would you take Jinder Mahal, a man who has been described as some as a black hole of charisma, and make him the #1 contender for the most prized title in the company?
Is one of the choices you're out of options?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't know. He got in really good shape. I know you're saying it's a wellness violation waiting to happen.
I feel like it. I feel like that man is a piss test away from, a 30-day suspension. I really do.
But he looks good on TV for the time being.
He does.
You're right, he's not very charismatic, and I haven't seen any of his recent stuff, but a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have bought him for $1. You know what I mean? Has his work rate improved at all? Is he the same?
I mean, I feel like I want to say yes. He has worked really hard. I'll give him that. He's worked really hard. He's gotten himself in really good shape, quote unquote. But he also, he's tried really hard to build off of what they're giving him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't hurt the fact that he is of Middle Eastern descent, and they are trying to expand into India.
Okay.
You know, and
But when he plays a face over there, they
Well-
had this problem with Brett and Owen.
but that's okay. That's okay. If you have all these different nationalities and you are a global company and they tour all around the world, then it doesn't matter if they're booed in America. When you get to India, he's a god, you know, and you can get people that are going to come out to see a man who looks like them. You know, you hate to put it in that,
Lowest common denominator.
but it's true. You want to have somebody who's going to draw people to the show that they can identify with. A guy in, New Delhi is not going to look at Triple H and go, oh yeah, he's just like me.
Right.
No, he's going to look at a guy like Jinder Mahal, who could be a superhero to these people. I know I keep using that term, but it really is the best way to describe it. You know, he's all of 6'3", 6'4", and he's jacked. Granted, there's not a lot else going for him, in my opinion. But you can make him the guy who's going to help you sell tickets, and now they've given him his own group.
Right.
You know, he's got the Bollywood Boys that they signed from the Cruiserweight Classic that were wrestling in NXT. They are, if they're moved up to the main roster, I feel like we're going to get a lot of Enzo Amore ragdolling of these guys, because they are, if they weigh over 145 pounds, I don't know, I'd be shocked. They're really small.
Right.
And granted, you put them up with Jinder, who is a big guy. I don't get it.
Who's the muscle? And
there you go. I mean, he's the muscle of the
Right.
group, and then you got the little guys who are just, that's what we said. Yeah, you got it right, Jinder.
What's the whole point of them? Right.
I don't.
They're little cheerleaders.
And it looks like they're dropping the whole Bollywood gimmick, which to me was really what they had going for them. Mm-hmm. That was different. I wasn't a fan, but it was different. It was
Right.
something that drew your eye to watch these guys dancing and everything, to like Bollywood, style dancing and music. And now they're just going to be the Singh brothers. And they're backing up Jinder Mahal. Now, I know that there's a couple other guys in developmental in NXT that could possibly be used. I believe there's a guy down there named Jeet Rama.
Okay.
Maybe they fast track him. I don't know. But, you could go, okay, well, why are they going to have a faction of Middle Eastern men? Well, why not? Why not? I mean, Vince loves...
India doesn't really count as the Middle East, though, does it?
I know. I keep saying that for lack of... But I didn't want to just say Indian guys.
Asia.
Asian, men. But I know Vince also loves his jingoistic storylines where he will...
Plays well in the South.
Yeah. Oh, man, does it. Oh. Get him, boy. Like, man... we are really past that. We really are.
In a lot of ways.
But that's what he goes towards. That's when business is down, when people aren't tuning in like they used to, he's gonna go to what he knows, and he goes to the evil foreigner thing.
Yep.
It's not a strong storyline, but
it played for 100 years. Why wouldn't it play today?
It's not strong enough. But yeah, why wouldn't it work? But speaking of strong, see that segue there?
Good,
like that?
good one.
We're going to talk about the strong build of Braun Strowman.
I'm still mad that he stole my haircut.
He did steal your haircut. I've been referring to him as Strong Roland because there's a look there that you guys share. And I keep begging you to growl like that because it's just... But I have been Now, if you would have asked me a year and a half ago when that guy debuted, if a year later I'd be going, man, this guy's incredible, I would tell you are a liar. But man, they have built this guy into really what the company's been trying to do for years, is have that big monster force in the company. You know, yeah, you have your Brock Lesnar, but that guy is, I mean, you...
Unreliable?
If you couldn't make money with... No, I'm talking about if you couldn't make money with Brock Lesnar, then you don't know what you're doing. But they've tried. I mean, you could look back at... the Great Khali. You could look at... they tried with Heidenreich.
Yeah, Heidenreich.
You know, they tried with... Nathan Jones. Do you remember Nathan Jones?
Vaguely.
The big, giant Australian guy, spent time in prison, just jacked to the gills.
I may have been tuned out at that particular time.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. They've always gone to these big, giant guys because that's what Vince likes, but he's never hit with any of them.
Right.
He's hitting with this guy, Braun Strowman. I mean, a legit power lifter. You know, strongman competitions. When the guy walks in a room, you're like, whoa, look at that guy. But the way they've been building him has been really smart. Granted, there's been times to where you're like, oh, man,
setbacks.
Guy that big shouldn't be backing down from anybody, you know,
right.
But he's backing down to the right people. He's backing down to Brock Lesnar. He's backing down to Big Show. He's backing down to Roman Reigns. But the way they're building him, I've been so impressed. I mean, the beatdown of Roman Reigns from a couple weeks ago where he attacked him backstage and then strapped him to a gurney and flipped him off a little loading dock there. And then, of course, he gets in the ambulance and he lifts the ambulance and flips it.
Forklift assisted, do we know for sure?
I don't know how they did it, but I know that he didn't lift all of that himself, obviously. But, you know, that guy, he was a power lifter.
Yeah.
He was a strong man. You know, he could lift some things like that. I'm sure he probably helped, but no, he didn't lift that. But still, it was the visual of it. You talk about the suspension. It's like he flipped the ambulance with the man in there.
You've never seen a man flip an ambulance before?
But you laugh when you watch it, but in the same time, you get into the visual of it.
It's the circus. Yeah.
And the way they've been building him has been awesome. So it's like, I know that the plan is, at some point in the future, they're building him, obviously, to Roman. But do you have him lose to Roman?
I wouldn't. I'd keep pushing him.
Does it make more sense for you to have him beat Roman?
Yeah. To me.
And I know that there's been talk that the plan is to have Braun versus Brock. To me, I want to see that. You know what I mean? I never thought I'd want to see that, but I want to see that. Because I feel like there's something there. You could build this man into what you want him to be. I mean, the crowd already cheers him because they hate Roman Reigns. But what happens when they cheer him because they want to cheer him?
Right.
You could make money with that guy. You know what I mean? There's something about it. And the way they've been building it, I'm nothing but impressed. You know what I mean? And I feel like, even for somebody like yourself who watches on and off, when you saw him, what was your thoughts?
Well, I mean, his power spots are incredible. I'm worried about how he can put on an actual match when grappling a dude, especially like Brock Lesnar that can actually work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So...
And that's where I point to this. Two of probably the most enjoyable matches this year have been between Braun Strowman and Big Show. Not exactly...
what you would consider.
Right. You know, but the way they worked, it was enjoyable to watch. You know, they played it up and Braun worked. He didn't just, you know, hammer, hit. He, you know, there was work in there. He did a kip up. On Monday. Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know, to see a guy that big go from his back and just sling himself up onto his feet's impressive. And then, of course, on Monday, you had the big ring explosion from the
I didn't see that yet, so it's supposed to be really good.
You should look it up. It was pretty cool to see. Now, granted, you knew it was going to happen. The LED posts on the corner all of a sudden disappeared.
We're not breaking those.
Right. The steps, for some reason, kept getting kicked away from the ring. But it doesn't matter. The visual of it when the ring explodes, when these two giant men hit, And then, of course, at the end of it, you have Braun be standing. Everybody else has been taken out. Big Show's laid off. The ref took a bump out of the ring to the floor when the ring exploded. Braun is left standing, roaring in the ring like the giant conqueror. All will fall. It says, it was a cool way to end the show. And I feel like if you continue that, you can make money with Braun Strowman.
For real.
So now we move on to, we talk about Braun, we talk about Brock, let's talk about Bray. Bray Wyatt.
Our favorite cult leader.
Yes, Bray Wyatt, the hillbilly voodoo priestess, or priest. Voodoo priest?
Priest? Urson?
Bayou Warlock? Bayou priest? What do you want to call him?
I don't know, dude. Well, I guess he's technically a
How would
shaman.
you describe Bray Wyatt?
Okay, well, he's summoning a spirit, right? So that's shamanism. Sister Abigail would be his patron deity. Yeah, he would count as a shaman.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Do you think they ever...
I qualify him as poorly booked. Let's go with that.
You once called him the Swamp Priest.
Yes, Swamp Priest is pretty good. I like that one.
I think that's a good way to explain it.
The lantern is a cool bit. I love his whole entrance, and I think he could do a whole lot if they could use him correctly.
See, and this is where it'd be nice to have Cliff here right now, because I'd want to hear how he would explain him, too. Because I don't know how you would explain him.
What do you mean?
To somebody that doesn't really watch. How would you explain Bray Wyatt?
Okay, well, it's a guy from a swamp, obviously. You start with that, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so he's got, like, the hat and the ragged clothes, and he's got the old-style lantern.
Mm-hmm.
What did they put in that to make it so bright?
I don't know.
It's got to be an LED or something, right?
I would think.
Anyways, so he comes out with the lantern, and it's all smoke, and it's all dark in the arena, like the Undertaker used to do. And everybody's got their cell phones out, and they're all in the audience, and they're all waving them around. So it looks like a little bunch of fireflies out in the audience. And he comes down to the ring real slow. And it's got this creepy music. Ooh.
Yeah.
He's just, creepy villain is where I would go with it mostly.
Have you liked the change to his look?
Indifferent.
Because he went from greasy Hawaiian shirt wearing, straw hat, white slacks, to where now he's wearing, like...
More like bondage
a
clothes.
denim hood.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like the denim hood.
He's got the dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I like the dreadlocks.
It's okay.
Sometimes he comes out with the hood with the horns on it.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. But he's still doing that. But the thing with Bray Wyatt is that is frustrating for most people, because he is a very entertaining part of the show. Why they don't ever really...
They never let him win.
They never let him win. They never let him win. You're always excited when he comes on, and when he's about to, feud with somebody, and then in the end, it's 1, 2, 3, and Bray loses again. But yet, he's always a focus of the show.
Right.
So, this whole storyline with Randy Orton, where he infiltrated the Wyatt family, and...
So poorly done.
But you know what? It was... The way it ended was poorly done.
Right.
The build, if you really go back and look at it, it made sense. He infiltrated the family. He turned all the family against Bray. They all eventually made their way out. Eric Rowan gets injured. Luke Harper is the jealous, son, if you want to call it, of Bray. Granted, they're not, related that way, but, that's his family.
Yeah.
I don't trust him. And he manipulates his way into becoming Bray's favorite, and Harper's ostracized, and then it's just Orton and Bray, and now that everybody's gone, Orton finally turns on him, and I've gotten rid of your family, you've trusted me enough to let me into your sanctuary, I'm going to burn it to the ground. Then you get the match at WrestleMania with the ridiculous projection in the ring. We're going to get worms. The crucifix, he's going to jam it into the ground, and, I'm going to get rid of the spirit of Sister Abigail. Yes, there's a spirit of some...
A sister named Abigail.
Nun. His sister. I don't know. They've gone back and forth. They say
he said if she was a nun at some point?
Well, he referred to it that way.
Really?
Yeah. He referred to it as Sister Abigail, this person who taught him. And then at some point it became... I think Michael Cole even once referenced her as his sister. And I think even Randy might have said it at one point. So I worry that at some point we're going to meet Sister Abigail.
Please, let's not.
The ghost of Paul Bearer. She's alive! Bring her out. Something like that. Where they bring out Sister Abigail, and I think that...
No, she comes out and she's like the girl from The Ring. She's got just some long, stringy hair and the white dress.
See? You want it. You secretly want it. You want her to come out and point at somebody and,
They drop over dead. You know what I mean?
Right. Or do you have maybe Bray sees a Sister Abigail in someone.
Right, okay, yeah.
Or something like that.
It's the spirit reborn in the body.
There you go. Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Would it... I feel like it's going to happen. I really do. I think it's going to happen someday in that company. I really think there's going to be a Sister Abigail. But...
Diva champion.
Yeah. But now we're getting the House of Horrors match at Payback.
Have we heard what that is supposed to entail?
No.
And it's not for the title.
That's the newest development. It is no longer for the title. Bray doesn't get a rematch to get his title back,
Why?
apparently.
Why doesn't he deserve
he's being
it?
moved to Raw.
Okay.
Never shall the brands commingle unless we feel like it needs to be done right now.
That's the stuff that makes me not want to be involved.
But that's the thing, is I get why you do a brand split, because you do have a giant roster right now and people aren't getting TV time, and the way to make money off of those people is to give them TV time, but...
You need to have two actually separate creative teams doing each show so that each show has an actual separate flavor, so that it's not just all, we have 5 hours of wrestling this week on primetime cable television.
But they do.
Yeah, I know.
They do have two separate creative teams. The problem is that it all has to filter through one guy.
Yeah.
And when that one guy is in his 70s and is a control freak, it gets filtered through that McMahon prism. And
how much longer do we have of the McMahon prism?
Oh, that man is not going to let go of the company. He's not going to let go of the reins until he's in the ground.
Right. But he's got to have damaged his heart with his hard living and whatnot.
I don't know.
Or they just keep finding orphans to put new organs in him.
Orphan blood. Keep him young. I don't know. But yeah, the House of Horrors match. I've heard there's talk of, like... I wouldn't be shocked to see it look something like the Broken Hardy stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just like at a mansion somewhere.
Yeah, on a compound. They kind of did it. They had a match at the Wyatt compound.
Right. So
with the New Day.
Exactly. That would make me think that been done or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be something like the Broken Hardy stuff. I feel like they could. There's going to be some. There's going to be some weirdness to it. They're going to maybe project a dead dog in the... I don't know what they're gonna... There's gonna be something.
Puppet tentacles.
There you go. Tentacles are gonna come out of the ring and grab Orton and...
Oh, you think they're gonna be in the stadium? I was assuming it was gonna be an off-location match.
I feel like that's what they're gonna do, but I don't know. They've not said anything. They've reached out for feedback from the audience. Like, they've sent surveys out. What do you think the House of Horrors match should be? And in there they said projected images in the survey. I know...
Why would anyone want to see more of that?
It was horrible.
Did anybody was like, yay, that was great?
I don't know. It was awful. It really was. And it was one of those things like when you were watching the show, you were like, what is that? Oh, wow. Why did they do that? That's dumb.
It looks so cheesy.
So cheesy. But no, I think it'll be something that's like filmed outside of the arena and shown to the crowd, like the Broken Hardy stuff. And speaking of the Broken Hardy stuff, Hardys are back. Crowd still chanting delete, but the Hardys are not broken.
Yet.
Yet.
It's coming, baby.
Supposedly, Dave Meltzer is saying now that there is negotiations.
Dave Meltzer's a liar.
No, Dave Meltzer, well...
He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's never worked for a wrestling company for a day in his life.
That's what some people say. But it is, I will say, and that's the thing that most companies will point to. They'll say that the wrestling journalists, your Dave Meltzer, your Wade Keller, your
Rob English's.
No. Your Mike Johnson, from PW Insider, even your Ryan Satin from Pro Wrestling Sheet, that those guys don't know anything. They hear from sources. Well, those sources are right more often than not, so you can't, immediately discredit everything they say.
They're not hurt lower mid-card babies that are upset with their push.
Could be. But sometimes that's where stuff like that comes from. But apparently, Meltzer is now saying that there is negotiation between WWE and Anthem, the company that owns Impact Wrestling now, to get the broken universe in the WWE. Now,
universes collide.
a lot of that was Matt Hardy's baby.
Right.
His own creation, and man, was it weird. If you have not seen any of the Broken Hardy stuff, look it up online. It is very
I was
weird,
entertained.
But it was entertaining. That was the whole point. It was so out there and different that you couldn't help but get into it. I wanted to hate it. I wanted to hate it when I watched it, but I found myself getting into it. I mean, Vanguard won.
With the hologram?
The hologram. The hologram coming out the top and just Brother Nero! I loved it. I thought it was great. So Matt is now in WWE, and every now and again you see him do the character a little bit, the arms out, with the teeth and the eyes, and obviously he still has the white stripe in his hair. Supposedly they are negotiating. Now I know that the Hardys claim they owned it.
Mm-hmm.
Anthem claims they own it.
Of course.
But from what I'm hearing, Anthem wants a cut.
Right.
They were telling the Hardys, anything that you sell, we want a piece of. Anything that you do in the Indies or in WWE, we want a piece of, because we own it. You did it under our auspices when you're under contract with us, so we own that. But apparently, WWE's lawyers are now stepping in. There's some negotiating being done. I don't know if they're going to buy it outright. I don't know if they're going to license it. I will tell you, I just don't see WWE licensing anything. They want to own it. They want it to be theirs. I do think that it also means for Matt Hardy that when the day comes that he leaves WWE, he's not going to be able to be broken.
Nope.
If WWE owns it. But they are stepping in to kind of help out and get that, because Vince sees the crowd, the way they react, the delete chants. He knows there's money to be moved, and he knows that there's merchandise to be moved. So he knows he's got to get on that money train when he can.
Yeah. So
I think at some point you will either see the starts of him becoming broken again. I know that online, and he's tweeted out comments about how winning the tag titles healed his condition. And he's no longer broken.
Right.
But could be feeling savage. So I don't know if maybe that's the workaround.
Yeah. They just change the words, and it's...
To me, that makes sense. Right. Just change the word. But I guess the whole character, they want to claim that the mannerisms, everything, that's theirs. But
you can't, I don't think, personally, as you wouldn't claim that Edward Norton's performance in a particular movie belonged to you and not Edward Norton, because Edward Norton was the dude doing the dude. I don't understand, personally.
Right. So let me ask you this. Do you think they will allow Matt Hardy the same kind of freedom to...
Probably not in the same way. What you got the first time is probably going to be the best version of it, and then when it happens again, you're going to oh, that could have been so cool if they'd have done that and that and that differently. You know what I mean? It'll be another one of those situations, is my guess.
I mean, we know that they often say they want you to make the character your own. They want you to, create when you're out there, but we also know that when you go backstage, if you're not reading the script like they want you to read it, you're going to get ripped a new one.
I was surprised how much word for word it is these days.
It is. It really is. There's some people that don't have to do that, obviously, but for the most part, yeah.
It's sad.
It is sad.
And I mean, because that's part of it as an actor is you got to improv and create. It's another skill you have to have as a wrestler. You got to be good at improv. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Half stand-up comic too.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll let him kind of do what he does, but I hope he'll have more input. You know, I hope that they'll kind of, you know, they'll work. And who knows? Maybe with the big machine behind him, maybe it'll be even better. Who knows?
How does Jeff feel about this? I mean, because if Matt's getting the limelight on this, because Jeff was bigger when he left WWE than Matt was. So when they come back,
from what I have seen, he really enjoyed the broken stuff. It was different. You know, let's put it this way. Jeff Hardy is, what, 39 now?
Just a little bit older than us. He
can't be jumping off ladders anymore. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. You made the reference to the age thing. I know when and I am, granted, not the most athletic man in the world anymore, but when I do anything strenuous, I hurt. It's just the natural thing with getting older. When you are 39 years old, no matter what you do for a living, whether you're a pro wrestler or whether you're a mechanic, you can't jump off a ladder onto people and think you're going to feel okay the next day.
Them old bones just don't heal like they used to.
And we're talking about a guy in Jeff Hardy, same thing with Matt, who had some issues with prescription drugs. You're talking about a guy who, from everything that I've seen, both of them have cleaned up, and bless them for doing that. You know, I know it's not easy, but
it's the hardest thing.
It's great that they did. But you can't relive the past by having 30, and in Matt's case, 40-year-old men jump off ladders on people and go through tables and all that stuff. I know that's what they were known for, but they're older now. Maybe the whole broken stuff will extend their careers a little bit and allow them to play around. And I know that Jeff liked it. He liked being Brother Nero and the whole vampire-looking thing. And,
yeah, the eyes, dude.
And, you know, and I mean, that's what was fun about it, is it was different. And it was very character-driven. But yeah, I mean, I hope they give him some freedom and, you know, to do some of that stuff, because it really was fun character-based stuff. Now, speaking of fun characters right now, Alexa Bliss is now the #1 contender for the women's championship.
She's so tiny.
She's very tiny, but she's fun to watch. She really is. That character, I think, is really good. And if you see where she came from in NXT, she was the glitter girl. She was she came out in all the blue and blowing glitter at everybody.
Wow,
and
really?
She was the Alexa Bliss and the glitter splash and whatever it was. Now she's this
mean
bitch.
Just mean.
Just a bitch. And she's fun to watch, because it's like you see this little 5 foot tall girl just doing some shit.
Hurting people left and right.
Well, but not so much even that, but she's playing like an old school chicken
heel.
Shit heel.
Yeah.
One that's going to talk all kinds of shit and then
get out of the way.
Right. So it's like she's now the #1 contender, and my question now is, since she was moved to Raw and she's now the #1 contender, and Charlotte was moved to SmackDown, Charlotte already being a 4 or 5-time women's champ, which is a little ridiculous, but I love Charlotte. Don't get me wrong.
12-time women's champion.
She's amazing. She's amazing. But now that she's on SmackDown, who becomes the first double crown champion? The one who won it in SmackDown and won it in Raw. Who becomes the first? Is it going to be Alexa? Or do you think it'll be Charlotte?
I would put it on Charlotte first, from a respect perspective. I don't know. It really... hardcore people are going to pay attention. Belt marks are going to pay attention. But I'm not sure the office is even paying attention, dude.
No. That's true. That's true. I ask because it's like I know that would be a selling point for the character of Charlotte.
Right.
But I also feel like it could be a selling point for anybody. You know, if you moved Alexa over to Raw and she's now the champion, you could talk about things like that. You know, you could say, oh, she's the first champion of both Raw and SmackDown, you know?
I feel like that could get reductive really fast and go,
It could.
oh, you won 3 different women's championships. You had a blue belt, a red belt, and a purple
Oh,
belt.
God.
Oh, my.
Don't get me started on the belts. Don't get me started on the color of the belts. And I just, but I know that was the thing back in the day. You remember it was the Grand Slam champion.
That was a big deal.
That was. And there's now been like 30 Grand Slam champions, but yet that was a big deal. So it's like I know that they were talking about that for a while, and who knows? Maybe they'll bring it up now that they're really trying to push the women as to what they are.
I always made sure my created wrestlers won every single title. I was always the Grand Slam champion.
Ego. Even in digital form, ego.
The worst, biggest.
So, Alexa Bliss, we talk about her in NXT. I want to talk a little bit about NXT right now. Now that you have brought to the main roster Ty Dillinger, the Drifter is now making his way around Raw.
I haven't seen the Drifter. Is he
Drifter,
good?
that's right. Elias Sampson. He play him as carries a guitar around. He is like the guy on the street corner playing for change. You know,
Buster.
Yes.
Nah.
And the character is a absolute heat magnet.
Everybody hates him?
They hate him.
Why?
They hate him so bad. And at times I find myself hating him too. But I feel like, is that the character? Is this X-Pac heat? Is this that we just don't want you on our TV heat? Or is this the character is touching the right nerve? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a bit of both. He's not the most amazing worker. He's got a good look. But the crowd hates him. And he'll come out and he'll start playing a song. And he'll kind of slag on the crowd a little bit. But like it work, and I feel like you can make it work on the main roster.
Right.
I laughed because I saw a meme the other day where on Raw, the club, Anderson and Gallows, they're walking backstage, and the Drifter, the last few weeks on Raw, instead of doing vignettes for him, what they've been doing is they've just had him kind of be in the background.
He's loitering.
Yes, exactly. During a women's match, you saw him walk through the crowd, and he just kind of gave a glance over the camera, and he kept walking. During a Jericho promo, all of a sudden the guitar starts playing. He just kind of walks through the shot and just kind of looks at him and keeps going. Well, on Raw, Anderson and Gallows, they're doing the whole, like, they're walking to the ring camera shot that I hate that they do. But this time, they're walking, and they both kind of glance over, and he's sitting on a equipment box, and he's playing his guitar, and they kind of gave him, like, the look, and then they hurried up and looked away, almost like you do when you're walking away from a sporting event or anything like that, and there's a guy in the street playing the guitar.
Oh, right.
You don't want to make eye contact because you know he's
okay.
going to ask you for money. I feel like that's kind of what they did there. And that was kind of what the meme did. It was like, you know, when you make eye contact with the guy playing for change and you don't want to tell him you have any money. So they brought these guys up, and of course they brought up Shinsuke Nakamura.
Who is amazing
Who
on
is
every level.
Absolutely amazing.
I don't care if he can't speak English. He is great.
He does well enough, you know, and I feel like, and I mean, that's the thing that I'm liking is they always do a dark match after the show to kind of keep the crowd, like, send them home happy, depending on however the show ended. Granted, on SmackDown, after the show is 205 Live, and then they do their dark match. That's usually reserved for your top guy.
Uh-huh.
Wrestling those dark matches right now on SmackDown
Is Shinsuke.
is Shinsuke.
Nice.
They're having him wrestle Ziggler. And people are staying for it. So to me, that already says they know what they've got in him. Mm-hmm. I stand firm. That guy is going to be your main eventer, hopefully, very soon.
How old is he?
He is 38, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So
Really?
he's up there, yeah. And obviously he wrestled in New Japan for years, so he's taken a beating already, you know. So his body's not going to hold up for too much longer, but wrestling a WWE style, granted he still wrestles that strong style, you know.
A toned down version.
Toned down, there you go, toned down. The WWE version of strong style. You know, I feel like they have a chance to really kind of do something with him, and I hope they do it right. But, you know, you always go back to Vince. If it's not that cookie cutter...
It's not the same stuff I've been used to, so it's not right?
And I worry that he's going to see Shinsuke, know that obviously he's Japanese, he has a loose grasp of the English language. He's not going to push him to the top of the card, you know. I don't see how you don't. The man is absolute money. You know what I mean? Like, the character, the way he walks to the ring, the whole...
Vince has to know better than... He's going to listen to the crowd, dude. I mean, he goes out his very first night. They're singing along with his song. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's different.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's not like anything that has ever come along. You know, I always point to the fact, as I told you when I first showed him to you, when he was asked what his influences were in the business or for his character, you expect to hear the same usual answers, you know, from most
Hulk
wrestlers.
Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels,
Jake
Steve
the Snake.
Austin. No, he said Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson.
Right.
Not wrestlers.
Nope.
But this
hugely popular
persona, this character, the outfit, you know, everything about him is different. Just the way he walks, the way he carries, the weird movements he does. It's so, and then of course once he gets in the ring, he's great. He's absolutely great.
Bell to bell, like
bell to bell.
Business.
I told you, like, the whole selling, the way he sold that leg injury at TakeOver a while back against Bobby Roode. I thought it was legitimate.
Right.
It wasn't.
Right.
So it's like, this guy has everything. Yeah, he can't really speak English that well, but he does it well enough to where he can get by.
His performance crosses the
Doesn't
language
matter.
barrier.
He, to me, as far as charisma, is the closest thing they've had to The Rock in ever.
Right.
He's not The Rock. I don't think anybody ever could be.
Right.
But the way he has the crowd in the palm of his hand, and he's not even saying a word.
Right.
Why wouldn't you put everything behind that guy?
I don't know.
You don't have a lot of time. He's getting up there. So, I mean, I feel like now that those guys have been brought up, you have your Bobby Roode at the top of the card in NXT. Drew McIntyre has come back. You know, he could be potentially, you know, pushed into the top. Hideo Itami came back.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen him either.
Kenta and Noah.
Oh, okay, Kenta. Yeah, all right. Sorry.
Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, he's had some injury problems, but he came back and he attacked Bobby Roode.
Okay.
So at TakeOver, it's going to be Bobby Roode against Hideo Itami. Itami, though, same thing with Shinsuke Nakamura, Japanese. But Itami is probably worse than Nakamura when it comes to his grasp of the English language. He's a great worker.
Yeah.
He's very small.
How small?
I believe he's like 185 pounds.
Okay.
He was always a junior heavyweight.
Right.
In Japan. I don't know what else you can do. Do you keep pushing him in NXT, or do you... At this point, I feel like you bring him up to 205 Live.
Right. Because that's where your good cruiserweights go.
Because I don't know what else you can do with him. The guy keeps getting injured. He blew out his shoulder. He had surgery. If you see him, you can even see there's some atrophy there because it just didn't heal properly. He was out a long time. I mean, I was probably like a year. And then he was back for like 2 or 3 matches, and he gets dropped on his head. It hurts his neck. Bad power slam spot. Look it up online if you haven't seen it. It was awful. Directly on his dome.
Dang.
I feel like I feel like at this point you're just kind of putting him out there to kind of get some return on your investment, and then I feel like, yes, you should just maybe move him up to 205 Live and call it a day. He's not going to be a main roster guy, in my opinion. And that's where I would say, if Cliff was here, he might argue with me.
He's got it in him, damn it.
Right. I just don't, I don't know.
Kenton was a good worker the last time I saw him 10 years ago.
He's still a good worker.
Right.
But when they signed him to begin with to NXT, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea because I just didn't know what they were going to do with him. They really haven't done much. You know, when Finn Balor came in, stole his thunder, you know, and kind of took the spot that they were grooming at Tommy for.
Right.
And then he got injured and he was out. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, Finn's injured all the time, so couldn't they like swap back and forth, Sun and Moon style?
Speaking of which, he's been cleared from his concussion, and he wrestled Monday. Granted, it was a complete squash, like 40 seconds, just destroyed Kurt Hawkins. But I don't know. There's something with Finn that there isn't with Itami.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably what's unfortunately going to hurt him. So we move on. We're talking about Hideo Itami. Maybe in the future we'll talk more about TNA. We're not going to do that today.
Yeah.
Actually, we're running out of time. I feel like we want to get through a couple things. Would you... We talked about it briefly when I sent you a message the other day. New Japan, Shibata.
Yeah, that was bad, dude.
It was bad.
The look on his face...
After he threw that headbutt.
Yeah, he was gone for like at least a 5 count.
Yeah.
On his feet.
On his feet.
But he was gone.
If you don't know, you should look it up. Katsuyori Shibata, wrestling in New Japan, was facing Kazuchika Okada.
Who is probably one of the best workers in the world at this point.
Threw a headbutt. He no-sold the Rainmaker clothesline.
Oh, is that what brought that about?
And then grabbed Okada by the ears and just full-on headbutted him. Shibata's been throwing those headbutts, but he doesn't pull it. Why skull to skull when you could just throw a thumb up there and it would get the same effect? But no, he skull to skull headbutted Okada. And like you said, he did it. It was probably one of the most sickening thuds I've ever heard in my life.
So gross.
And he did it, and then Okada drops to the ground, and Shibata stands there.
Looking like he shit himself.
Looking like he shit his pants. Just,
And then that little trickle of blood
came
out of
down.
the middle of his forehead. I'm like, oh no.
What happened with that headbutt is he finished the match.
Mm-hmm.
And then collapsed backstage. Some paralysis on his right side.
Semi-permanent?
Well, no, he has the use of his hands again. He was in the hospital, though. He's still, apparently, in the hospital. He had a subdural hematoma. Had to have emergency surgery. Now they're saying that it is looking like he may never be cleared to wrestle again. And it's sad because he was somebody who, you know, if you follow Japanese wrestling, was on the cusp of somebody that people were waiting for him to be pushed. His style was different. He was really kind of harkened back to that All Japan Misawa Kobashi style of just...
Which was the stuff that I loved.
There you go.
But not if it's going to kill a dude.
That's the thing, is when is it too much?
Yeah,
you
there's
know?
a real fine line.
I mean, you don't want to draw the comparison, but that's how Misawa died.
Mm-hmm.
He died in the ring from a bump. You know, you point to what happened to Hayabusa. Granted, that was an unfortunate accident. He broke his neck. He was paralyzed from the neck down. He lived, but that's how Misawa died. That's how, you look at Mexico, that's how Perro Aguayo Jr. died. In the ring from a stiffer shot. Now, granted, the thing with Aguayo was just a drop kick to the back of his head by Rey Mysterio, but it killed him. Japanese, the strong style, the full on hits. It's that car crash aspect of it is fun to watch, but should it be toned back a little bit?
I would say to the extent of not seriously injuring, ending a dude's career over one headbutt is obviously ridiculous. You know what I mean? You will never be able to completely eliminate the risk. It will always be there, but you can take every step you can to minimize it. You know what I mean? Throwing a thumb up when you're doing a headbutt. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it like I said, if you watch it, it's just, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, it really is.
You just kind of sit back and go, man, that was a rough one. So the headbutt being what it was.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of set. I mean, do you tone it down? Do you want somebody to just full-on blast someone in the head with their own skull?
That's the whole point of it being professional wrestling, right? Is you're supposed to work it a little bit and not actually hurt someone. That's the strong
style for a reason.
Oh, no!
It's Cliff.
Run
what are you
in
doing here, man?
Clifford L. Johnson, what's going on, man?
Up, though?
So, you missed about 3/4 of everything we were talking about today.
Hey, you shut your mouth.
But as we explained, it's a little difficult. Cliff lives in another state, and he has a job that's not your typical 9 to 5, as he's working with all kinds of celebrity types nowadays.
Ooh.
Almost famous.
Almost there.
So, to jump back to what we started the podcast out with today, as we kind of said, this is almost our zero issue, our origin story here. What drew you to pro wrestling? What made you such a fan?
I think it was just, so when I was little, I watch wrestling just kind of in passing. I never really had I could never find it on TV unless it was just the little specials, Saturday night specials and whatnot. And as you know, it wasn't until I really met you that I really, really got into it. And that was that was 9th grade year, meeting you and Ed and Dave and the boys. And, it's just watching the Monday Night Wars and just going crazy. And so that was really what sparked my love for it again, was the camaraderie that I had with my brothers, man. So,
and I also want to say that there was a period there, right around the invasion. You said you kind of really stopped watching around the invasion. I actually did too.
Yeah.
I followed, but I kind of stopped really being involved. The one person who did not was Clifford L. Johnson. That man kept watching, and he would tell me, "Oh man, ECW showed up in the invasion." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." So it's like I feel like when he got turned on to it, and it just never stopped. Whereas me, I kind of had like a little breakup period with my mistress, and was like, "Nah, I might come back someday." And then I realized nobody loved me like her. So I came back.
So, I've been there before.
Oh, wow. A little personal business coming into the show. So, what, as we talked about, Ed said he's more drawn to the sport aspect of it, the storylines he can follow, but once they get a little too out there, he has a hard time staying involved. Are you more a business as a whole keeps you involved, or are you more into what happens in the ring?
I'm more involved with what happens in the ring. I would prefer, if I didn't even really know about all of the other crazy aspects of it, because to me it's just it's like reality show. You know what I mean? It's just like if I'm watching basketball, it's just I don't really care what such and such did at the home. I just want to know if he
Plays good
scored
that day.
30 points last night.
Right.
Huh?
He said if he plays good that day.
Oh, right, yeah. So it's just like, it's that type of thing. So it's like, when you're watching wrestling, it's like, I'm watching it because I like to see the athleticism and I like to see people battling in the ring. I don't really care about the outside stuff. And then when it comes to like storylines and plots and stuff like that, it does, some things are intriguing. Like just recently the friendship angle with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. Like that was something that got me invested, and I was really excited to see how it was going to play out. Or the angle with Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, and trying to figure out, okay, how long is Randy going to be involved in this? Just to see the writing aspect of it. And then sometimes you just like to watch, like the Cruiserweight Classic, where it's no storylines. It's just, hey, we're in here, we're having great matches because we want to prove who's the best wrestler. And the athleticism of that is something that draws me too. So I'm kind of both. I'm on both ends of it. I do appreciate the athleticism, but when the storylines are good, I do like those as well.
Yeah. So, like you said, and like we said at the beginning, I'm the guy who is about as devoted as you can get. I'm reading all the news. I'm watching all the shows. I'm driving Cliff up a wall when he's trying to watch Raw on delay, and I'm texting him like, "Oh, you know what happened with so and so?" And then he's like, "Stop! I haven't. Just don't.
You're spoiling the match."
Right. But then it's like he's the major fan. He watches the shows every week, but he's not as obsessed as, say, I am and others are. And then Ed is the fringe fan. He's the guy who...
I like the science of wrestling.
I like to watch it, but I don't give a shit about half this stuff. So yeah, you missed some of the conversation that we talked about. I do want to hear, what are your thoughts about... We'll go back to the first thing we led with, Jinder Mahal.
Jinder Mahal. Okay, so... And this is the thing, too, about knowing the business of it, right? So, if you've been doing your readings and all that, you kind of know why they're giving Jinder the push, is because they're starting a push for a market in India, and they did the same thing with Great Khali, and he was terrible, and everyone knew he was terrible, but he squashed the Undertaker on his first match.
Yeah,
like. You know what I mean? Squashed.
Pinned him with 1 foot.
One of the greatest superstars to have ever graced our TV. He squashed him. And so they did that for that market as well. So I understand the business behind it. They're trying to go really hard at it. And to be honest with you, I'm not mad at it.
Right.
Of course, like, just watching wrestling, you're like, Jinder Mahal sucks. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody said, "What do you think about Jinder Mahal?" Yeah, well, he sucks. Like, that's pretty much, that's all I can say about it. But to see the work that he's put in since he got released, after all of the crazy, 3MB stuff and all that, like, he was able to, go to the independents for a little while.
Yeah, Ed, not to cut you off, Cliff.
Incredible shape. And I think he deserves a shot. I mean, he's been wrestling for, 10, 12 years? He's been maybe longer than that. And he's been, whether or not it's, mid-card or lower tier card or whatever. or
upper lower mid card.
Upper lower, yeah. or just doing superstars. Like, he's been a mainstay in WWE, and I think it is time, just like kind of like how Zack Ryder had his moment in the sun. I think it's time for Jinder to just be able to get that shine and to see if he can run with it.
Yeah.
give him a shot and see how he does. If he fails, he fails.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. You know, even if more than likely, I just do not see them giving him the belt. But if you run with it a little bit, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, then okay, you tried. If it does, great, you got another name that you can kind of do something with.
Right.
But to go back to what you're talking about, the ridiculous 3MB stuff, I do want to see Ed's reaction when I say, yeah, at one point he was in a 3-man rock band with Heath Slater and Drew McIntyre, and he was wearing a bedazzled turban.
I saw it. Yeah. I looked it up after the fact. It was crazy stuff, man.
I also wanted to get your opinion on the Broken Hardy stuff potentially coming to WWE.
I love it. Absolutely. So unlike you guys, the Fairweather fans. No. For a while I was actually I've just been like all things wrestling. So if I could get off, whenever I get off work, I would try to catch up on it, you know, maybe skim through it on the online or whatever. But I was still watching TNA, and I was seeing what was happening in TNA, and I was even telling Rob about it a few times. He's like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, what is going on here?"
Like, I know who's in TNA and kind of like the goings on, but I have such a hard time watching it.
So I had been keeping up with the stories and following along with what was going on with the Hardys and all that. And Matt Hardy, like, he had, I guess you can call it a career renaissance. Like, he went to TNA. Jeff was having issues, and so they kind of like they
put him on the back burner.
Yeah, like they let him run, you know, and he was feuding with EC3 for the title, going back and forth with that. And he as a baby face, and then once he got the title, he switched over to the Money Matt. Matt. Like, I really thought that was kind of an evolution of like the Matt Hardy version 1.
Yeah,
could probably be version 2, you know, whatever.
Matt Facts.
But yeah, and he still kind of does a little bit of that with the broken thing. So
how he strongly detests mustard.
Yeah, right. So it's cool to see him to be able to reinvent himself, and basically he reinvented himself twice within a year. Like, he completely switched his character 2 separate times and was able to grow, you know, and really get people invested. You know, people were actually watching the broken, you know, what was going on at the Broken Hardy compound, and, you know, all of the crazy, what was the match called that they had? The
final deletion.
The final deletion, yeah. The final deletion and all that stuff, and total nonstop deletion. You know what I mean? Like, it was like he had this stranglehold over wrestling for a couple of months. So
yeah.
I do believe that's probably, I wouldn't say the only reason, but it's definitely the reason why you see him back in WWE now, because they're like, oh, I guess that name is still worth money.
So,
you know,
you talk about that you still followed TNA and everything. I now ask you about this. Now, officially, TNA is merging with Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling.
Yeah.
So I ask you, does it matter?
No, it doesn't.
Not gonna make a difference.
Because Global Force wasn't global, and it wasn't a force. So it doesn't matter. I think this was just Jeff's way of getting back on TV.
Yeah.
You know, which is good for Jeff, but at the end of the day, like, I don't really give a crap about Global Force. I actually just looked up their roster the other day, just because I was looking at the Impact stuff, and I was like, okay, I mean, some of the same guys that we saw on on Impact or now back and forth to Global Force.
Well, I know
it
that
doesn't really matter.
To go back to gender, the Singh brothers, the Bollywood boys, they were the Global Force tag champs.
Were they really?
Yeah, and then they went to the Cruiserweight Classic, got signed by WWE, never dropped the belts, but yet Global Force up until probably, I don't know, 2 months ago, still had on their website them as their tag champs.
Yeah, they were the champs, yeah.
So, but here's the thing. I don't knock TNA and Global Force because I'm not a huge fan. I want to be a fan. I want to watch the show.
There should be a good number 2.
Yeah, there should be a good number 2. And if you can't focus enough to where you can keep people consistently watching your show all the time, then I don't know what else can be done for you.
It's so crazy when you think about it that way, because I don't know if it's just because of what happened with wrestling, but even when TNA brought in all these big guns, they brought in Hogan, they brought in Flair at one point, they had Mick Foley at one point,
Macho
Booker
Man.
T, they had all of these names.
None of them moved the needle.
They were worldwide known names. Like even when Kurt Angle first came in. And it just didn't have the same appeal. They were, Kurt Angle had some of his greatest matches with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and TNA.
I actually point to the fact that, and I don't know when I'd have to really look, but I almost feel like Kurt Angle spent more of his career in TNA than he did WWE.
He
It
did.
feels like it now.
He spent 7 years in WWE. He spent 10 years in TNA.
There you go.
So he, and at some point, this may get a little bit off subject, but at some point I do hope that WWE ends up buying TNA's library.
Well, I think they will.
Just because of basically all the people that they have now that are shining, like your AJ Styles or Samoa Joes, like they have 10 years of great matches that, your average WWE fan will never know about,
And
which is kind of insane.
Yeah, and you talk about WWE potentially buying TNA library someday. We talked about this not too long ago. There was the rumor a few weeks back about Ring of Honor being bought by WWE.
Yeah.
Is it a situation where they're looking to buy it outright? Which obviously kind of scared me as a fan a little bit because of what happened with WCW.
Yeah.
If they buy it outright, are they just going to toss it to the side?
Make it look like crap.
Right. Or are they just going to harvest the tape library? Because, again, you point to all the people in WWE that have made their way through TNA. Look at all the people that have made their way through Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Definitely.
AJ Styles, Samoa Joe,
Daniel
Bryan, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn,
Claudio,
Austin Aries, Claudio Castagnoli. All these people that now are under the WWE banner that have spent the majority of their career and probably some of their best years of their career in Ring of Honor.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when there was rumors that they were going to buy it out, I got a little nervous. I'm like, oh no, you're going to get rid of Ring of Honor.
But Gabe's not doing it anymore.
No,
anyway.
Gabe now has Evolve. He has his own company.
Oh, okay.
He split away and now does that. But now, apparently the sale is not really happening.
Okay.
It's kind of died down. But there was talk that perhaps it wasn't a matter of them buying it outright. Perhaps it was more a matter of them trying to license that tape library.
Uh-huh.
Because there's talk that the WWE Network may be going to a higher price tier. You can choose which one you want. The basic $9.99, you get all the pay-per-views. Or something like a $14.99 tier.
International package.
There you go, where you get the indie wrestling section. And apparently they've already worked out deals with ICW in the UK, and Progress. Is it Progress? I think it's Progress. No, it's ICW and shoot, I cannot remember the other one. But they're UK.
Sure, it's not Progress.
It might be. I don't know. But it is. They're working out a deal to where those companies are now going to be supposedly having their shows on the network as well. I don't know if that means also their pay-per-views.
Right.
But to me, it would only make sense.
It would make perfect sense, because not only will you be giving people more exposure to other wrestlers, it'll help grow those brands, but it'll help grow. So once they start, rating talent as they've done, for the last 20 years, once they start doing that, they'll be able to say, oh yeah, remember that guy you saw on the WWE network, in ICW? Yeah, well, he's coming to Raw next week.
Right.
Or he's coming to NXT, or, the people that they start branding, just imagine if they would have been able to have like an Impact Wrestling during, AJ Styles' heyday, what I mean?
Right.
And then just to be able to have more eyes on that product, so that eventually when they do come over, you'll be able to, the people will already know them, even though for the most part it seems like, once the name gets big enough, they'll know them anyway. But
right.
I'm still baffled. I keep going on a tangent, but I'm still baffled at how well the quote unquote WWE universe took to AJ Styles.
They knew who he was right away.
Yeah, I knew that they would love him, but I didn't know that they would crown him the king. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen.
He by far gets probably the biggest reactions on any of the shows right now.
Sure.
Arguably, but yeah, he's the guy, but yet
they're going to push Jinder Mahal.
They're going to push Jinder Mahal.
That's just for now. Jinder is just a...
No,
like when the McRib comes back. It's like for a limited time only. You can get this McRib because we're trying to get rid of these extra McRibs we got. So
does Jinder eat McRibs?
Jinder does not.
You don't think he does?
No, he does not.
It's a pork product.
Jinder is I think he's either... I don't know if he's a vegan, but I know he eats very clean.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't drink or anything like that. Yeah, he said he was on Talking Smack talking about that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Speaking of very clean, as we mentioned before, Cliff lives out of state.
Master of segues.
And we are talking. Yeah,
I know, right?
Getting good at this, right? And we are talking to him via Skype. And I did notice when you were on the camera a bit ago. Are you wearing some silk PJs? What's going on there?
No, I am wearing my very, very, very special Deadpool onesie.
Oh my God. Okay. There we go.
Oh, you look just like Deadpool.
You do.
So you need to take that picture and put it up. There you go. Oh, man.
See, that's awesome right there.
Wow.
I'm so jelly
I
right
saw
now.
the red. I saw the yellow. I thought you were wearing like a old rock silk shirt thing going on.
No, sir. Deadpool onesie.
Deadpool
my Sunday fun day dress.
There you go.
Got to get dressed up for church.
Right. I don't ever get a chance to just sit around.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, as we said, Cliff's a very important person in the world of entertainment down there in the ATO. So he doesn't really get a chance to just lay around in his Deadpool onesie as much as he would like.
I do not. But today is definitely Deadpool onesie day. For sure.
So, just a couple more things before we sign off here. I did want to touch on the fact that Mauro Ranallo officially done with WWE.
Hashtag fuck you, JVS.
So, obviously... this is
That's
upsetting.
Podcast, right?
What's that?
so we can cuss on this podcast.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we're not worried about the language enough.
yeah. Obviously, we're not going to be dropping them all the time, but you know,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
the time permits, and obviously,
Punctuation is necessary.
that's right. This is one of those topics
and
where
this
it would
is definitely
be.
a time that it's necessary.
But here's the thing: you say hashtag fuck you JBL. He has now come out and said, "I am officially done with WWE. This has nothing to do with JBL."
Really?
Yes,
It's part of the disclosure agreement, I'm sure.
that was my question.
Probably.
Is
I was
this
gonna say, and I see that's the thing that's when it comes to wrestling, right? It's like a gift and a curse, because it's like you don't know what's a work and what's a shoot. You just don't know, and regardless of how many dirt sheets you read or how much insider information you have, you never really know.
That's right.
And so one of these, and because the reason why I'm saying fuck you JBL is because the dirt sheets are saying, hey, JBL's a bully. He's the reason why, he caused a breakdown and a mental breakdown with Morrow, and as a defender of Mauro Ranallo and those who were bullied, it just was like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's not like this is the first time anyone's accused him of it, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's got a history.
right.
If anybody listening does not know what we're talking about, Mauro Ranallo, for years, has made it very open that he has struggled with bipolar disorder and depression. And JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield, is somebody who is well known behind the scenes as being a bully, a shit stirrer, that guy who you probably didn't like to sit near in school because he just made your life a living hell. And apparently may have pushed his buttons a little too much, and Morrow needed to step away for some help. And not long after that now, Morrow is done. And that's sad, because I obviously was a huge fan of Morrow. I was very excited when they signed him. And his way of calling a match is so much different than anybody else in the company. Everybody else in the company is basically a clone. They all look the same, too. They're all white guys with dark hair who speak in a
Michael Cole slowly turning into Jim Lawler.
Right.
They're all becoming Michael Cole. Tom Phillips.
Whoa.
I do like Tom Phillips, but he is not very exciting to listen to. That's why everybody loves JR, because he was exciting to listen to. He got you into the match. When his voice went up, your voice went up. When he got excited, you got excited. When he was playing it real serious, you got real like, wow, this is deep. This is really for real right now.
Yeah.
And Morrow had that ability, but Morrow, at times he went a little over the top. He, at times, studied from the Joey Styles school of match. Oh my God! But
Mamma mia.
exactly, that was his catchphrase there.
Was it really?
Yeah, Mamma
That's
Mia.
funny.
But that's the same reason why I like Joey. Joey Styles was one of my favorites to listen to because it was different. It wasn't just your typical, we're going to call this like a match. He threw his jokes out there. He called the moves. And then he would, oh my God, he'd lose his mind. And Morrow was kind of the same way.
Right.
But, that don't fly in WWE. You don't call moves. You don't
say that was one of the things that.
Not only was he calling
about
moves.
Listening to a Mauro Ranallo match was the fact that he knew everything that was happening in the ring.
Right.
He knew what it was called. He knew where it was from, who originated it, who started it first. He was almost like a less smarkier version of Matt Striker.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. But the other thing that he had going against him, though, was Matt Striker tried to fit it into the WWE auspices. He would try to call it like a WWE product. He every now and again would reference a wrestler or somebody from the past, but it was always somebody that used to be under the WWE umbrella. Whereas Morrow, he flat out name dropped Okada during a match once.
What?
Right.
You know, he would call a Oshigoroshi or whatever the tiebreaker, the little Death Valley neckbreaker thing that AJ and Ty Dillinger used. He would call things like that, and when you would hear it, you'd be like, "Oh man, he called that," but then you'd sit back and go, "Man, Vince ain't gonna like that."
He's getting screamed at in his ear right now.
On television.
When you go to the back, he's gonna yell at you.
Yeah. So it's just, as for being a global wrestling fan and just knowing about the different styles and knowing how they call certain matches and moves that they give, it's refreshing to have an announcer that does call moves what they are, just instead of calling it a suicide dive, calling it tope suicida, stuff like that, like that, just like, oh yeah, because now you're hearing other commentators starting to say that, they're starting to call it that.
And that's the thing that apparently was sold to him when they signed him, was Triple H and who was the other one? I can't remember, but I was reading this the other day. There was a story about how Morrow is officially done, and they sold it to him as, we're putting you on SmackDown, and we're going to make this show different. It's going to be different from Raw. Raw's going to be your more storyline-driven stuff, and SmackDown's going to be more action-based with storylines, but it's going to be more action-based. We want you to call it like you call it. We don't want you to change your style at all. We want you to be more Ranallo. And he did. I mean, you listen to you talk about the Cruiserweight Classic. He called the Cruiserweight Classic with Daniel Bryan, and it was fun.
Love that shit.
Yeah.
It was fun. Because he got into it, and you had Daniel Bryan's aspect from being in the ring. He could talk about why this move hurt and why, stuff like that. And then you have Morrow, oh my, he'd lose his mind, and then you had that on SmackDown for a while. And to be honest, when he was with Jerry Lawler, I actually liked those two.
Yeah.
Lawler was kind of calling his best stuff since the JR days.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they swapped him out, and Lawler went bye-bye. He went out to pasture, like the old folk usually do. And they brought in JBL. And JBL, I will say this. I don't mind JBL as a commentator.
I like JBL as a commentator.
But
I think that I think he does I don't know if it's just like the Vinnie Mac in his ear or whatever it is, but he says certain things and it's just like too much for me sometimes. But I do like his the kind of heel-ish persona that he had.
And I do like hearing the JBL-isms.
Yeah.
Hardest part of the ring, Moggle! Stuff like that.
You might not know this, Michael Cole, but I'm the hardest part of the ring.
I'm not wearing pants right now, Michael.
You're in trouble now, boy.
Give me my hat. I'll use it as a hat hanger. But, I there are times to where I feel like he probably goes out a little too much to try to get himself over. And you hear that at times.
Yeah.
Now, do I think this whole Morrow thing is going to change that? I do. But I know that not long ago, Michael Cole, who is now in charge of the announcers, he's kind of like their go-to guy for, how they're supposed to call matches and things like that. They laid out rules. They laid out, rules that everybody's supposed to follow and things like that. And things you are allowed to say as a heel commentator and things you are not. Things you're allowed to say as the play-by-play guy, things you are not. But apparently JBL does not follow those rules.
Big surprise, right?
But that is because he is, in a lot of ways, considered Teflon, because he's one of Vince's guys. The whole Be a Star bullying campaign is even more ironic.
Sad.
Because you have somebody who does these things behind the scenes, but this is not him acting on his own volition either.
Right.
These are things that he's told to do.
Right.
These are things that he's told to do by those higher up than him. See if somebody can take it. If he can't take it, then he doesn't need to be here. Which is ridiculous.
How would you compare Vince McMahon to, say, Tywin Lannister?
But it's like, this is a global company. This is a publicly traded company. And you got JBL. I mean, Edge told the story in his book about being in the shower.
Yeah.
And JBL walks up and starts soaping his nuts. And Edge had to no-sell it. Like, yeah, this happens all the time. This is good. You want me to lift one for you? Like, I don't know. But I don't know if it'll ever change. I don't know if it,
we can only
if
hope.
it should change. You do kind of only hope. Now, I do want to bring up one other thing.
All right.
Before we kind of start to wrap things up here. Obviously, this week we also had the passing of Rosie, otherwise known as Matt Anoa'i, member of the Anoa'i family, brother of Roman Reigns, son of Sika, the Wild Samoan, cousin of the Usos and Rikishi.
And all of these Samoans.
All of the Samoans, a giant Samoan family.
I didn't know Rikishi was Alpha Jr.
Rikishi is not. Rikishi is a cousin.
Yeah, I know. It's not his brother. It's Alpha Jr. was his name, I thought.
No.
No?
There was an Alpha Jr.
That's not the same dude.
He was, what was his name? Manu.
Manu, all right.
Manu, yeah.
Yeah, when Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, or Ted DiBiase Jr. and Manu, it was the legacy. They were all...
Right.
Yeah, but he flamed out real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick.
He's in Japan, right?
He went to Japan, I think, for a little while there, but then I really don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened to Alpha Jr. at all. But no, same family. Anoa'i is Yokozuna.
Yep.
Who else? Umaga. Umaga is a Fatu.
Right.
Umaga is the brother of... Wait. Yes, brother of Rikishi.
Rikishi, yeah.
Uncle of the Usos. It gets very hard
It's
to keep
very
track.
complicated. There's a lot of them.
It's a lot.
And somehow the Snookas are in there too. Kind of like an uncle-ish. And then Nia Jax is a cousin of The Rock.
Yeah.
The only Samoan that is not a member of this family is Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe, right?
But yeah, I wanted to touch on that just mainly because, obviously Roman Reigns being a big part of the company nowadays, you do kind of... You don't really want to kind of say, oh, geez, I wonder if this is going to affect him on the show. But I guess it's a good thing that he already kind of had time off with this whole injury thing. But I know that he was very close. I mean, it's his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
I was listening to that Jericho podcast the other day, and he was talking about, he was talking about being around the Usos and his brother and how he just looked up to him. And I just you sent that link just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it definitely sucks, man, to see that. But it's good that he did have that story in the time off. So it's a blessing in making, so to speak, for it. But for it to happen the way it did. But you know, it's always a difficult thing being a fan, you know, and wanting to, you know whether or not something is going to affect someone personally. And yeah, it can affect their, you know, their performance or their drive or passion, or, you know, whatever it is.
But yeah, so I mean, it's sad. Apparently, he had been dealing with congestive heart failure for a little while. Was hospitalized for a little while. He does leave behind 3 young children. So obviously, our thoughts go to the Anawai family. So, as we talked about in the beginning, if you are listening, thank you very much.
You made it to the end.
You made it to the end.
Wow.
We got a run in there. We didn't think we were going to get Cliff linking up with us today.
Thank you for joining us today, Cliff.
I appreciate it, and my apologies for not calling in earlier. But I totally was sitting with the family and watching Cavs, whoop on the Pacers, and drinking beer, and you know, enjoying my Sunday.
Well, I also pointed out to Ed that while we mentioned we were going to be recording today, we never actually told you what time. So
exactly.
That is kind of on us.
By the time I was like, what time are we doing this? And then I set my phone down, I started watching the game, and then by the time I picked it back up, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So, like, 2 hours ago.
So yeah, so please forgive us. We'll work better on that. But obviously, any issues that you may notice in the sound quality or whatever, please bear with us.
We're working on it.
We're
It'll
working
be fixed.
on it. It'll get there.
The intro will be better next week too.
Intro will be better next week. Yeah. So we stopped short of basically holding a phone up to the microphone for that one, but
Right.
but we're working on it, and we hope you enjoyed listening. And I won't say that every episode will be this long, but we'll play it by ear as things go on. But hopefully you enjoyed listening to us, and hopefully you subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, at WNA Podcast, or no,
we're at Wrestling Nerds Allied.
Wrestling Nerds Allied. Yes.
Yeah, Alliance wouldn't fit.
Yes, there you go.
It was bullshit. I was pissed.
Damn
Thank you. Twitter. So follow us at Wrestling Nerds Allied. Find us on Facebook, Wrestling Nerds Podcast, Wrestling Nerds Alliance Podcast. Like us on there. Follow us on Facebook if you can.
If you can use the internet, you can find us and do the stuff you're supposed to do.
Cliff,
share us with your friends.
Follow Cliff on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Clifford_L, like the magazine. ULL.
And you can follow me on Twitter at ThatRobGuy. I don't tweet a lot, but I'm hoping to more often now. So yeah, subscribe, obviously, on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, SoundCloud, Stitcher.
It'll be up there.
It'll be up there. We're hoping to make this a weekly thing. If we can't, it'll be as close to weekly as we can get. Obviously, we are all married fathers. We try to get this in whenever we can. We hope to make it a frequent occurrence, but time will play its role in there somewhere, I'm sure.
My kid's sick, I can't make it.
Right. As you saw today, we had a run-in from Cliff about 3/4 of the way through the show.
Tag in somebody.
Right.
It's a hot tag.
Hot tag. So, with that...
Speaking of... We'll talk off here.
All right. Okay. All right. So, on that note, we're going to sign off here. I am Rob English.
I'm Ed Rowland.
Clifford L. Johnson.
Take care and stay nerdy, guys.
Nerdy and dirty.
Nerdy and dirty.